Good afternoon, everyone. It's Gary Sly and the Legacy of Handmade Objects. I guess you have been able to tell by now, if you've been watching my videos, that I don't do a lot of editing or fancy background work. I just kind of do my videos and put them out there. So I apologize if things are a little rough and ragged today. I forgot my camera stand, so that means I've got my camera propped up against the paint can right now. And I'm down on the floor because I've been doing some work laying out my quilt that I'm working on. But anyhow, just to let you know, I figured a long time ago if I was going to do these videos regularly, I wasn't going to have time to do a lot of editing and fancy stuff. So they're pretty raw and unedited for the most part, and that's just the way I do it. It's the day before Election Day, November the 4th, 2024. I hope if you haven't already done so, you're going to go out tomorrow and vote. Make sure that you take advantage of that freedom. That is our right as Americans. And, I guess my message always is no matter what happens in this election or in any election, let's remember that we're all in communities together. And no matter who appears to be in charge up in Washington or in our state capital or wherever, we have to live with each other. So I will reiterate what I said last time. I hope in our communities, in our towns, in our clubs and groups and families that we're trying to take care of each other. That's the best thing that I think we can do no matter how much chaos surrounds us. I think we're all looking forward to a little relief from the election season. Well, as I mentioned, I'm on the floor and I'm in the new shop today, or the new house today. The reason I forgot my camera stand is that these days I'm kind of living in three different places, or I'm moving through three different places. I have my apartment in Ocala, and that's where my camera stand is because that's where I did my broadcast from last week. I have majority of my stuff in my old shop up the street at 609 West Main in Leesburg. And I'm slowly and methodically trying to move things down to the new place at 1012 West Main in Leesburg. And the goal is to be here so that I can reopen on the day after Christmas. So I'm going to be in the old place through the holidays, a couple days before Christmas as we begin to think about taking a break. I'm going to have a big day where everybody comes and helps me box stuff up. That's going to be Saturday, December the 21st. And in the next few days, I'll have the movers bring everything here to the new place, do some quick work trying to arrange things and set things up. And again, as I say, I'd like to be open here for business on the day after Christmas, which is actually Boxing Day in the UK, if I remember correctly. I was thinking about the quilt this morning before I came down. I've been struggling to find a place big enough to lay it out because it's one of those projects, as is often the case with quilts, that takes quite a bit of space. And you can see there that I've got it laid out here on the floor. My job at this point is to figure out how to pin it. There's my red background that I'm using on it. So I've got the quilt on top, and then I've got batting that I bought and the red fabric that goes on the back. Tell you a little bit about kind of what I'm about at this point in terms of the quilt. I know I've mentioned it in past episodes, but this is one of those projects that I've been working on for easily 30 years. The 50 state Jan Lynn kits in cross stitch were given to me as a gift. And I very well remember around the time that my first son was born, I started working on the first kit, which I think was Delaware, because I think I did them. No, I take that back. It was one of the A's because I did these alphabetically. My oldest son is 33 years old in August, so that tells you that this project has been going on at least 33 years. Let me take a little side trip and just talk about those long-term projects, because I see a lot of people in the shop talking about things that they've not finished that they started a very long time ago. There's several things that I would say to that. Sometimes it's just not something you really want to finish. I have a long stitch project up in the shop that I can't bear to throw it away, but I really don't like it. And you know, it's been on the frame and ready to be finished for at least 25 years, and maybe somebody else will have to finish it because it's just not very interesting to me. A lot of time our life gets busy, or we change the situation of our lives, and projects that we thought we were going to finish in a certain period of time just don't happen. Maybe our health or the health of a loved one deteriorates. Maybe we get a new job. You know, I remember having a family and kids kind of interfered with some of the things that I like to do from a craft perspective. But if it's really something you're interested in, you certainly will come back to it. Now, the quilt has not been a situation where I didn't want to do it. I've loved working on all the cross-stitch squares. They're such beautiful colors. I know you can only see them from upside down at the way I'm looking at it today because I'm pinning from the top. But look at all the wonderful colors that are involved. And I've always been kind of a 50 state nerd. I love the facts and factoids that go along with the 50 states. I did a project in 4th grade that some of my classmates from then still talk about. I was sort of a super nerd when it came to presidents and the states, and so I guess I still am. So I've loved doing the stitching, and I decided one of the things that was holding me back from finishing the quilt was the idea of having to get a sewing machine out and figure out how to do that. I've never really used the sewing machine for sewing. Anytime I've had to do any hand stitching, I've done it by hand. That's the way my maternal grandmother taught me, and that's the way she mostly did her stitching. And when I finally realized I didn't have to do it that way, that I could accomplish a hand stitch quilt, I kind of laid that fear aside and began to work on what it would take to get it together. I had bought the fabric some years back. I knew pretty much what I wanted. I didn't want just a basic flat cotton blue and red. I wanted some zing to it. My gold fabric has stars in it, so it's got a nice effect if you can see those. And the red fabric that I've chosen for the background is very mottled and looks hand-dyed. The blue that dominates a lot of the coordinating colors in the middle is just a flat cotton blue. So I tried to kind of compromise there, but do what I wanted to do in terms of colors for the rest of it. So over the last 6 months or so, I've been putting the pieces together using the blue and gold strips to line the middle of everything. During the summer here in Florida, the quilt got a little heavy, and so I took it, I put it in the back room for a couple months until things cooled off. But now I'm back into the fall here in Florida, and I'm busy doing some piecing. I've got the whole top pieced now. And so the thing that I'm here working on today is taking safety pins and pinning the 3 layers together. Now, if you're quilters, you know all about this. If you're not, what you try to do at this stage is get all 3 layers fairly even, and use the safety pins all around the edges and all through the middle to put the 3 layers in place. I'm not going to try to do that here. I'm not terribly coordinated on a good day. Trying to do that on the camera probably won't work very well, but I'm going to pin safety pins all across, up and down, back and forth, to make sure that the 3 layers stay in place. Then, of course, I'll start my quilting. I use a big wooden hoop for quilting, and I like to use a real strong, if I can find it, wax thread, but it's hard to find here in Florida, so I just use a real strong thread to do the quilting. My idea, and this comes from the instructions for how to assemble the quilt from the original Jan Lynn project, is to first quilt around each state outline, because each square if you can see it here, each square has an outline of the state. There's Oklahoma. You can see the state outline here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through all 50 states and quilt around the outlines of the states so that when you look at it from the back, you'll be able to see the outline of Oklahoma or Hawaii or whatever as you go across and look at the back of the quilt. Then I have some really cool stencils of different sizes of stars. And I think the rest of my quilting to hold the 3 layers together and to finish the decoration at that level will be just a scattering of stars all over the quilt, covering the middle and some of the design inside. I had a little bit of a debate about whether to put a layer between the front and the back. This quilt is already very heavy because it's Aida cloth with cross stitch on top and a back fabric. But I realized that because I'm using Aida, if I didn't put a layer in between, the red fabric would show through the Aida, and I didn't think that would be very satisfying. So I debated a bit. I went to the fabric store and I looked at muslin, off-white muslin. I thought that was a little bit too heavy for what I wanted, and it was pretty expensive. So I ended up with just a traditional quilt batting in between. It's nice and light, it's easy to pin through, it's easy to quilt through, and I think it'll serve its purpose to buffer the front from the back. The plan is not necessarily to sleep under this quilt. I'm not a fan of big heavy quilts, and Florida doesn't work that well for those anyway. But I do have a spot that I want to hang it just as you come in the door of the new shop. So I'll make sure you get to see that in a future episode, and if you come to visit, you can come and look at the quilt up close. I've been giving some thought lately to how to finish the edges. Most of what I've done so far in terms of stitching has been pretty simple, just straight lines. But I was thinking I might get some bright gold cording and maybe do an edge of cording all the way around. I'm going to do a strip of red on top to border out the 4 sides. And then I'm thinking maybe some gold cording and maybe even gold tassels in the corners. So I've been thinking ahead just a little bit about what I want it all to look like. So this is indeed one of those projects that even though it's taken me 33 plus years to work on, I'm still as excited about it as I was back when I got the original 50 kits and started the project. If you have some projects like that stowed away somewhere, I hope you'll think about taking them out and looking at them. If you have lost some threads or some fabric, or something is not quite complete about the process, maybe things have gotten lost or misplaced through the years, go to your local cross stitch shop or stitching shop or whatever the project is, and talk to them about what it would take to rehabilitate a project. I really do think there's a great deal of satisfaction in thinking about finishing something, even though it might have been a very long time ago. I really do see that quite often in the shop, where people will come in and say, I really should have done this a long time ago. I've gotten discouraged. I encourage them to bring it into the shop, let me look at it, see what needs to be done. Often they're very close to the end, and maybe they don't realize that, or they've just not looked at it for a long time. So finishing those legacies is maybe the story for today. And of course, I've mentioned this in past episodes, but I'll say it again. When you finish projects, it's always good to think about putting them on display and letting people know that this kind of work is still being done. Charlotte is a new member of my Thursday stitching group. She's only been coming probably a month or so. She's pretty far up in age, though she's very keen and very sharp. But she moves a little bit slower than she probably used to. And I was walking into the shop last Thursday, and Charlotte beckoned to me. She was still in the car, and she said, I want to show you something. So I went around back, and she opened the hood, and she had 2 beautiful cross-stitch angels that she had done many years ago and that she's had hanging in her home for many years. She said, I want to show these to you, but I don't want to take them inside. I don't want to show off. I don't want people to think I'm a show-off. I said, well, you may not want to show them off, but I'm going to take them inside and show them off anyway. So we went inside with them, and of course everybody oohed and awed and loved them. Stitchers know how much work goes into these projects, and even if they don't like it, I suspect you're going to get a lot of oohs and ahs if you show off your work. But what led me to the discussion and talking about Charlotte is if you do have county fairs, state fairs, other opportunities to show off what you do, and if you have chances where you can stitch and do handcrafts in public. Most guilds and associations have stitch in public days or knit in public days or whatever. It's important because there are young people who might like to do this stuff, but they've not seen anybody doing it. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what it's called. Many of you know I worked at Universal Studios with a lot of millennials a number of years back, and I was sitting cross-stitching one day, and one of the young women I worked with walked by and she said, "Oh, are you knitting?" And it kind of boggled my mind that she didn't know the difference between knitting and cross-stitch, but she didn't. And it was not that she was not an intelligent person, she'd just never seen anybody doing any of it. And I frequently did cross-stitch, and I probably gave away 20 little starter kits to the millennials that I worked with there at Universal Studios. And I see younger stitchers that I've been friends with through the years and that I worked with at Universal out there doing projects. So I know there's still a love for this stuff. I know there's a revival of handmade objects because of COVID and so many of the complications that come with modern life. And so I hope that when you get the chance, you'll show other people what you're doing. 1 out of 10 maybe will take an interest in it. Everybody else will walk by and say, "Oh, isn't that nice?" But the 1 in 10 is what it's worth for, because you can maybe show them a little bit of something that will catch their attention, and somewhere down the road maybe they'll try it themselves. Okay, well, I got to get back to pinning this quilt. If I don't get it pinned, it's going to lay here on the floor for a long time, and that's not a good thing. I hope that you continue to enjoy some fall weather. Thanksgiving's just a few weeks away now, so I started looking at groceries yesterday when I was in the store, and actually bought my first can of pumpkin in anticipation of cooking for the holidays. It's a fun time of the year to begin to anticipate those times of gathering, and it's a great time of the year to be working on projects and doing handmade objects that will become legacies for those we love. Have a great day and a great week. This is Gary Sly and the Legacy of Handmade Objects.